I feel like freedom is knowing your rules. You know, freedom is knowing that gravity exists. It's not jumping off a building. And so, you know, when you know the rules and you acknowledge them for yourself and you make them for yourself, then you can start to manipulate the situation. I'm Cole Douglas. I'm an abstract painter based in Brooklyn, New York. Around 2019, when I was a senior in college, a friend had a paint night, and I was like, oh, this is actually fun. You know, as an adult, going through an existential crisis because I got hurt in football, and so, you know, trying to find new things, and it just slowly creeped into my life more and more. I think the more difficult thing that art helped me work through was the identity around, you know, being a football player to not being a football player. It's very hard for people to transition to not being an athlete anymore, especially football, because it's such a visceral experience. It's such a keystone experience in someone's life. So to go from doing that every day to never doing that, it's a very difficult thing to challenge, and art helped me work through that. I always created things. I have an engineering background. I have a lot of different creatives in different ways in my family. But more specifically art in that mode of creation. I think in general, engineering and art are both creating. I always say engineers are low-level artists are low-level engineers, because I've seen so many artists and I'm like, you could be an engineer, like you make things well. And from a personal standpoint, engineering aligns with my personality and more being a process-based approach. When you engineer, it's not just, oh, I want to make a rocket ship to go 1,000,000 miles an hour. It's no, I want to go from point A to point B. How do I get there? And then work backwards from there. And so my art process is similar in that I'm attempting to reflect something, I'm attempting to show something, and then I work backwards, like how do I get there, follow my process, and reflect on if I was able to achieve that thing. So really utilizing that process-based approach in both my engineering and artwork. It's very nebulous, but I would say from a general standpoint, it's a psychoanalysis of myself is often what my artwork feels like. I've tried making it in other ways, but my artwork always goes back to being a personal story, a personal message, a personal reminder for myself from different aspects of my life. One aspect that I definitely take from my engineering background is I have rules when I make things. Like they're very subtle rules, but I'll be like, on this artwork, I'm doing 3 lines every time I mark something. On another artwork, I'm like, I have to match every color a certain way. And so that process and those rules can change, because sometimes I'm like, I don't want to follow the rules today. Or sometimes I'm like, I want to test a rule today. So it's always open to change, and it always has changed. I don't think I've ever had a consistent process for an extended period of time. So right now, the process that I've developed is, I wouldn't say centered on writing, but writing is a foundational part of it, where whether it be poetry or you know, personal essays, working through things that maybe I'm feeling, working through my perspective in those essays and that poetry, not directly translating that onto the artwork, but allowing that mind space to influence the artwork and set the intention from there. From, you know, having a beautiful day in the summer, reflecting on that beautiful day, seeing how I can try to reflect that. And sometimes the artwork does go to that exact point that I'm aiming for, but then sometimes it veers, because back to the psychoanalysis part of it, sometimes you don't know how you're feeling. It's deciphering your thoughts from your feelings. And so it's always an opportunity to open up myself and express these, you know, inner thoughts. My new body of work is called Clouds Never Get Old. It's roughly 13 large abstract pieces, along with a collage of some personal family photos I've taken and a video interview with my grandfather. The themes throughout the work are themes of water, transience, connection with the land, and acceptance and resistance to change. For the physical, like the literal painting, it's probably been from about May to September, more or less. But for the ideas and like kind of setting that direction and intention, I mean, that really started at the beginning of this year. So, it's been almost a 9-month-long process to actually get down what I'm attempting to say and understanding my intentions behind what I did. So poetry for me in this body of work has been super important because poetry has the ability, more so than more literal writing, to express those transient feelings, express those feelings you can't touch. And it's in a similar vein as abstract art, where you're able to express things that almost aren't attainable through words, and appreciating the limits of that, I feel like has really empowered me to more critically focus on what messages I'm attempting to say. Because abstract art is great at, more ethereal things, but trying to be very literal through abstract art can be more difficult to obtain compared to other mediums. So it's been fun to test those boundaries and create those boundaries for myself and work outward from there and see what it is that I can say through the work. In the winter of this year, I did the Water Diviners workshop at Swiss Institute with Jumana El-Aboud. Her workshop led you through these various methods that she has borrowed and created herself of connecting ourselves to the water and appreciating those rituals through a creative writing process. And through that process, I started to realize what I'm conjuring up, and what I was conjuring up was very evident to me that I was reflecting on my resistance to change in relation to my elders getting old and struggling with different things, and appreciating their struggles more so. And that's why what turned into Clouds Never Get Old. So it's an homage to the spirit and mysticism of water, while also kind of referencing my elders and their struggles and accepting the change and all that, because a cloud isn't a static thing. It's changing energies. It's going from one form to another. So this, for example, is my painting titled Marsh. As I said before, or as I mentioned, the marshland is a very special place, I would say, in my heart, and also an important place, in my opinion, to the personal histories of my people in South Carolina. And so this painting is musing on the mystical nature of the marsh, and as it's a place where things are old while also things are new, because it's a place where things go to die, but also it's a place where things sprout up from and things find life from. So it's a painting that, is reflecting on all this, and through this improvisational nature, attempting to capture what that feeling is for me, in the hopes of, transmuting that to others beyond. This painting, it uses both acrylic and oil stick. So the acrylic are the larger strokes that you can see, and I create that texture by using a palette knife and scraping the paint on the canvas. And when you layer that on top of each other, it creates this effect more and more pronounced. The oil stick are the lines, the chalk-like lines, that also give me a really, really desirable texture that interacts with the acrylic in such a way that it almost lifts it off the page. For here, for example, you can see the green and the gray and the light green underneath, they're all acrylic. And so this order was done from green to gray to dark green. And I think this is, almost an inexplicable part of my work is, these run-ins that the paint creates with itself. And then on top of that, once all that has dried, I do each acrylic layer one by one and let it dry. On top of that, I add the oil stick, and that again adds a certain level of separation to me from the canvas that really helps, express this mystical nature and things. So you can see we have this, almost puke green with like a light green and like a mauve-ish color to kind of all interact to make this whole image. Growing up in South Carolina, I think influences in general, family was a big one. I would say almost everyone in my family has different things that they've influenced or educated me on in South Carolina history, whether it be my mom's side, my dad's side. My grandfather is definitely a history buff, definitely loves to talk history, so he's probably the biggest offender there. Whether it's just telling personal stories or, larger narratives about South Carolina history, South Carolina Black history. Like I said, like being close enough to nature to have a personal relationship with it. And in this work specifically, as I continue to revisit South Carolina as an adult, see the way it changes, see the way it doesn't change, and not necessarily compare it to the different places I've been, but appreciate it for what it is and see the beauty in it. Because I think there's so many beautiful things about any place, and being that this place is home to me, it's brought me so many good memories and so many things to be proud of. Yeah, I think any experience with water, all the way from the ocean to a creek, is really cool to me. I think I particularly love tidal rivers. My grandparents' backyard has a tidal river behind it, and it's just beautiful. You go in the morning, it's super low. You can see the marsh, like the muck in the marsh, and then you go in the afternoon and almost everything is completely submersed in water because the tide has risen. So I think seeing that over and over again and seeing that rise and fall, the ebb and flow, is it always fascinates me. I feel like I go through cycles of my perception, of South Carolina, my family. I'm fortunate to still have 3 of my 4 grandparents with us, and they've just struggled, as all older people do. They're in overall good health, but they've struggled with things, and seeing that up close and personal has been a difficult emotion to work through, because for me, what it was as a driven person, I want to make a solution. What's the solution? Should we stop doing this? Should we start doing that? But the reality of it is, even if you do everything perfect, there's still going to be struggles, and there's still going to be things that, you just can't help. And, no amount of modern medicine, no amount of any healing form can help that. So it's just something that you've had to come to accept and deal with in the best way you can. The initial change was a feeling of resentment, because it was like, hey, well, if y'all do this thing, if y'all do that thing, to my grandparents, or internally I said that to myself, to my grandparents, maybe, you wouldn't struggle with this. And of course it's easy from the outside looking in to just say, hey, change, but they've done things a certain way for a long time, and they're not liable to change, and they're not obligated to change. And so I think it was working through the resentment, so that initial feeling, and then now working through or just being in reality and accepting of what's going on and rolling with the punches and helping where I can. I think it's hard because sometimes, you may feel from the outside looking in that things should be different or a different way. But I think the more I get to know, the more I'm like, well, I don't know much. Because the more I understand, I'm like, wow, well, it is complicated. It is more settled than just it should be this, it should be that. So I think the biggest change has been being open to, or being understanding that it's a lot of situations are difficult in many different ways. Reflecting on my time at my residency at the Hill Street Country Club a year or so ago, one of the lead people there, Dinah Pollinus, taught me was art is personal, art is communal, art is universal. So not a specific message I'm trying to get out, but emotion I'm trying to evoke is, reflection, the ability to change, accepting change, because that's so much about what my artwork centers around, and seeing that for my personal community, because it is oftentimes conjured up through those personal interactions with friends and family, and other people I surround myself with. So I think it's a message for me, and then for others, it's a message that things can change and things are okay to change, because I feel like that's always what we struggle with. I have a studio in Brownsville, Brooklyn, so if you're ever interested, you can come to my studio in Brownsville, Brooklyn, and still working on other opportunities at galleries, whether it be in the city or elsewhere, for people to come see my work.